Namo Adida Fa. Good morning. Thanks for having me here this morning to share a little bit about Buddhism. My given name is David. Most of my friends call me Katya, and at the Buddhist temple, I'm Yakvian, so you can pick anything you want. I'm wearing a brown temple robe with a black mala bracelet on my left wrist, have glasses and a shaved head. So I was initially drawn to Buddhism along two streams. First, I was integrating mindfulness-based modalities into community programming and pastoral care. And second, I found myself very at home in and well supported by socially engaged Buddhist practice, which integrates personal and social transformation with special attention to systems of oppression. I encountered Buddhism academically as part of my graduate program in intercultural studies in the late 1990s, when I spent many hours in a free Tibet bookstore interviewing monastics in the San Francisco Bay Area. But I didn't begin practicing intently with the Buddhist teachings until around 2005, while I happened to be a Baptist minister in rural Missouri. My professional background includes both ministry and community development and conflict transformation. In the early 2000s, I was a minister in rural Missouri, and that was a pretty stressful time in a lot of places, and especially in rural Missouri. It was the usual ups and downs, all intensified by the methamphetamine crisis. It was overwhelming in most ways, as you probably can imagine, and I could feel my well-being stretched thin. The most pressing question became, how can I engage with all this suffering inside and around me with honesty, openness, compassion, and wisdom, without succumbing, which would have been easy to do, to apathy, rage, or despair? I could feel myself becoming increasingly frustrated at those who didn't support our community programming, and also decreasingly hopeful that our efforts were going to make any kind of real difference. In 2005, I was in a thrift store there in Bell, Missouri, and it was a chaotic little store. And I happened upon a thin volume on the shelves of that little thrift store. It was Being Peace by Thich Nhat Hanh. I was vaguely familiar with the author, and the title caught my attention. And it was that little book that reopened the door for Buddhist practice in my own life, a practice that carried me through those very stressful and painful circumstances. It was during that time, too, that I put several of Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings to music, and I'm going to sing a few of them later today. In 2007, my family moved to Cambodia, where we worked with a small peace-building organization called Peace Bridges. With our backgrounds in conflict transformation, community education, and domestic violence programming, they asked us to help develop a training program to prevent, heal, and transform family violence and conflict. I also helped develop and provide training in nonviolent direct action, socially engaged spirituality, and conflict transformation for human rights defenders, social workers, organizers, and activists. This time was particularly helpful in strengthening a socially engaged practice for me, but funding dried up for our programming during the global economic crisis, and we ended up here in Springfield, Missouri. I started attending events and services at Dinh Quang Buddhist Temple in 2011. Construction on the temple was completed in 2012 under the leadership of the Venerable Thich Thang Chan, and through the effort and generosity of the Vietnamese community here and around the world. It's an active monastery, a home for monastics and temple attendants. It features traditional art, statuary, and practices of Vietnamese Buddhism, which combines Pure Land Buddhism and Zen or Tien Buddhism practice. We host services and activities for both Vietnamese and English-speaking members, forming one community with two languages. I was invited to coordinate the English-speaking services there in 2017, and was ordained with modified novice vows a year ago today, actually, so my 1-year anniversary. Our English-speaking services are ecumenical, including elements from several Buddhist traditions, and interfaith. It's very Buddhist service, but it's interfaith in that we welcome anyone to participate without any expectation of conversion, regardless of anyone's faith or no faith. And even though we are a small group, we also continue to deepen our socially engaged practice, such as through prison ministries, packing emergency meal kits for local organizations, and our personal volunteer activities. Our ongoing aspiration is to cultivate a space in Southwest Missouri where we can hear the Dharma, build a community that is devoted to the practice of the Buddhist teachings, and learn to embody compassion and wisdom. I think all of those things are very concordant with UU's vision as well. As our Venerable Tai teaches us, we aspire to build a place dedicated to cultivating and nourishing the spiritual life, forming a temple in the hearts of each one of us. The most succinct presentation of the Buddhist teachings, universal to all Buddhist traditions, is of course the Four Noble Truths. Following a pattern used to diagnose and treat illness, it outlines the Buddha's approach to understanding suffering, but not just suffering, the end of suffering. This focus on practice helps train the heart-mind, cultivating wisdom and compassion that can lead to awakening. For example, in the Susapawatnota Sutta, we read, the Buddha picked up a few rosewood leaves in his hand. He's walking in a forest at this time, and he picks up a few leaves in his hand, and he says to his mendicants around him, what do you think? What's more, the leaves that are in my hand or the leaves that are on the trees in this forest? And they said, sir, the few leaves in your hand are just a tiny amount. There are far more leaves in the forest above. And the Buddha replied in the same way, there's much more that I've directly known that I haven't explained to you. And why haven't I explained it? Because it's not beneficial or relevant to the fundamentals of the spiritual life. And what have I explained? These are the Four Noble Truths. This is suffering, the origin of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the practice that leads to cessation of suffering. And why have I explained this? Because it's beneficial and relevant to the fundamentals of the spiritual life. It leads to disillusionment, dispassion, cessation, peace, insight, awakening, and extinguishment. This emphasis on understanding how suffering arises and then how to skillfully work with it sometimes gives Buddhism a reputation of being pessimistic. But notice that the point is not the suffering. The point is to not get stuck in the suffering, but to turn toward the suffering so it can be healed and transcended. The Buddha was honest about the reality of suffering, which makes his insistence that suffering can come to an end all the more optimistic. We're invited to focus on what brings about well-being, what fills us with kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And this is the context for a reading from Thich Nhat Hanh, one of these texts that I put to music so many years ago. Life is filled with suffering, but also many wonders, like the blue sky, the sunshine, the eyes of a baby. To suffer is not enough. We must also touch the wonders of life. They're within us, all around us, everywhere, anytime. They're within us, all around us, and all the wonderful things that you're looking for, happiness, peace, and joy, can be found inside of you. You don't need to look anywhere else, and all the wonderful things that you're looking for, happiness, peace, and joy, can be found inside of you. You don't need to look anywhere else. Life is filled with suffering, but also many wonders, like the blue sky, the sunshine, the eyes of a baby. Suffer is not enough, we must also touch the wonders of life. They're within us, all around us, everywhere, anytime. They're within us, all around us. And all the wonderful things that you're looking for, happiness, peace, and joy, can be found inside of you. You don't need to look anywhere else. And all the wonderful things that you're looking for, happiness, peace, and joy, can be found inside of you. You don't need to look anywhere else. So the Four Noble Truths may begin with suffering, but it's just the beginning. The Buddha's insistence in the third noble truth, that suffering can actually come to an end, that suffering can be transformed into insight and compassion leading to awakening, is one of the most optimistic messages about human life that I've ever heard. This same confidence is also displayed in the teaching on Buddha nature that you might encounter if you look into Buddhism. All beings have the capacity for awakening or enlightenment. And the fourth noble truth, better known as the Eightfold Path, outlines how to make that possible through cultivating virtue, meditation, and wisdom. This is, again, a very positive understanding of the cosmos. The Buddha nature is described as being within the shroud of the afflictions. And the afflictions in Buddhism, the most basic list are the three poisons: greed or grasping, hatred or ill will, and delusion or ignorance. But those afflictions, those poisons, aren't inevitable. They don't form some part of a permanent self. Humans are tragically and obviously capable of acting in harmful and cruel ways. We get that reminder every single day. But in the Buddhist teachings, the afflictions are temporary obstructions. They obscure, but they don't destroy the capacity for awakening. This is why the Tathagatagarbha Sutra compares the Buddha nature to things like honey inside a hive fiercely guarded by bees, or the kernel of a cereal grain encased in a husk, or a gold nugget in a pile of excrement. As we cultivate the Eightfold Path, we're given this treasure, giving this treasure a chance to be found and shared. And when we do so, it helps create the conditions that support others in the same kind of transformation. It's a virtuous cycle of encouraging one another. And that's the theme of this second mindfulness song about a flower. A flower does not have to do anything to be of service. It only has to be a flower, and that is enough. That is enough. That is enough. That is enough. A human being, if she is a true human being, is enough to make the whole world rejoice. And she is enough. And she is enough. And she is enough to make the whole world rejoice. If we have peace and joy in ourselves, our peace and joy vibrate throughout the whole cosmos, and we are enough. We are enough. Yes, we are enough to make the whole world rejoice. Returning to that eightfold path, Buddhist spiritual practice is the art of transforming the conditions that lead to suffering into the conditions that lead to well-being and to awakening. Greed, hatred, and delusion are increasingly replaced by generosity, kindness, and wisdom. Each moment then becomes an opportunity for transformation. We become aware of the possibility to connect with the goodwill, compassion, joy, and equanimity that are right here, available to us inside ourselves and between each other. And we call that dwelling deeply in the present moment. In the Bhattacharya Sutta, which is the Auspicious Day Sutta, the Buddha taught, you shouldn't chase after the past or place expectations on the future. What is past is left behind. The future is as yet unreached. Whatever quality is present, you clearly see right there, not taken in, unshaken. That's how you develop the heart. This teaching became the basis of Thich Nhat Hanh's words about the most important day. Each morning when you wake up, decide to make this day the most important day, and try to keep this spirit alive. Yesterday is already gone, tomorrow is not yet here. Today is the only day, the most important day. Through mindfulness you will find that you have even more reasons to be happy, more reasons than you thought. Yesterday is already gone, tomorrow is not yet here. Today is the only day, the most important day. Yesterday is already gone, tomorrow is not yet here. Today is the only day, the most important day. And everything we are looking for is right here. And everything we are looking for is right here, right here. Everything we are looking for is right here in the present. Everything we are looking for is right here in the present moment. Yesterday is already gone, tomorrow is not yet here. Today is the only day. Most important day, most important day. For me, my Buddhist practice is an ongoing practice of joy. And it recalls one of our teacher, Tai Chan's teachings and how it shaped my practice over the years. He would say to me, listen a little, practice a lot. Listen a little more, practice a lot more. It's a reminder that these teachings are of inestimable value. And the way we best recognize and honor that value is to put them into practice. The Buddhist teaching is that all conditioned phenomena, including us humans, are inconstant, impermanent, and subject to change. Buddhist practice helps to chart a course through all this constant change in a way that can lead to insight and liberation rather than to more suffering. In other words, we can take the fact of our impermanence and use it as an opportunity to train the heart-mind. Whenever I sit to meditate, for example, I call to mind a simple aspiration. May I be with these next moments with kindness and curiosity, with gratitude and openness, so that wisdom can arise. Over time, the mind becomes accustomed to that kind of habit, that training, and it carries over more and more easily into everyday life. Through cultivating the Eightfold Path, our lives may take a course that we never would have guessed, away from greed, hatred, and delusion toward kindness, compassion, equanimity, and joy. In my case, practicing with the Buddhist teachings took me around the globe, only to end up back where I started. When I stepped into that Tibetan bookstore in Northern California, like 25 years ago, it was like entering another world. Now, when I step into our Vietnamese Buddhist temple right here in Southwest Missouri, it feels like coming home. I offer a deep bow of gratitude for everyone and everything that has supported me in this journey so far, and that will support me in the future. And that now includes all of you. Thank you for inviting me to share this present moment together. Happy Labor Day weekend and Namo Adida Pha.